I used to think the holidays were stitched together with simple things: warm bread, old songs, a clean tablecloth, the kind of laughter that makes your shoulders loosen without you noticing. These days, I know better. A holiday can also be a spotlight, and a spotlight, if you're not careful, shows you exactly who in your family thinks you're still a person and who thinks you're just a wallet with a pulse. It was the week before Thanksgiving when the first crack appeared. The air had that sharp apple skin bite to it, and the trees out front were dropping leaves like tired hands letting go of paper. I was at my little kitchen table, the same table I've eaten at for years, the same one my late husband, Ernest, sanded down himself until it shone smooth as a church pew. The kettle was singing low on the stove. My cardigan smelled faintly of lavender detergent. Ordinary life. Safe life. Then the mail came. My credit card statement. I opened it the way I always do. Slow, careful, like I'm turning pages in a Bible. I've been managing numbers since before some people knew what a checking account was. I spent 35 years as a school registrar and bookkeeper. I've watched parents forget fees, and I've watched teenagers borrow lunch money like the world owed them a sandwich. I know the look of a lie when it's dressed up like an accident. At first, it was just little bites: $20, $45, two charges back to back from places I hadn't seen, apps I'd never touched, purchases made at hours when my old bones are already in bed listening to the house settle. Nothing loud, nothing that would make a bank siren go off, just quiet taking. And what bothered me wasn't the amount, it was the pattern, like someone had been testing my doors at night. I set my glasses lower on my nose and traced the lines with my finger. My pencil hovered over the page. The kettle clicked off. The kitchen went still. Even the refrigerator hummed softer, like it was listening. I told myself the first lie we all tell when we don't want pain: maybe it's a mistake. Then I told myself the second lie: if it is who I think it is, he'll come clean. My grandson Damon had been living like a man who thought consequences were for other people. 24 years old, tall and pretty in the face the way his mother was at that age, with that same easy charm that makes strangers lean in like they're lucky to be noticed. Damon could sell water to a fish and make the fish thank him for it. He called himself a creator. He filmed everything: his food, his outfits, his hustle, his little speeches about manifesting abundance. He talked about success like it was a coat you could put on if you said the right words in the mirror. And every time he came by my house, he'd look past me, past my living room, past the family pictures, past my quiet life, and stare at my ceiling like he was measuring the place for a bigger dream. He'd been talking for months about a house, not just any house, a new build near the edge of town where the streets are wide and the lawns look like they get ironed. He'd shown me pictures on his phone: white cabinets, glossy countertops, big windows that looked like they belonged to people who drink green juice and don't worry about the price of eggs. He'd grin and say, "Grandma, I'm about to close. Big step. Life-changing." And I would smile, because grandmothers are built to hope. We've lived long enough to know the world is hard, and we still choose to believe the people we love can soften it with effort. But that statement in my hands felt like cold metal, so I called the number on the back of the card. I sat straight in my chair like I was back at the school office, dealing with a parent who thought a raised voice could erase a late payment. A young man answered, bright and bored, and I asked him to read the last few transactions out loud. When he did, my stomach dipped. Not just because of the charges, because of where the shipping address was listed. My address, my home, my quiet little brick house that has held my grief and my birthdays and Ernest's last breath. Someone had been ordering things and sending them right here like it was normal, like they belonged. I asked the young man to freeze the card. He said he could. I asked for a replacement. He said it would arrive in 5 business days. I thanked him like a polite woman and hung up the phone. Then I sat there a long time with my hands folded, listening to the clock tick. That same evening, Damon texted me. Not a greeting, not a question, just instructions. If the bank calls, tell them you approved it. Don't make it a thing. Don't make it a thing. Like my trust was a loose thread on his sweater, and I was being asked not to tug. I stared at the message until my eyes watered, not with tears but with that sharp dryness you get when you realize the person you love has already decided your feelings are inconvenient. My first impulse was to call my daughter, his mother, and let anger do what it does best: burn and spread, and turn into family war. But I have lived long enough to know yelling is a kind of gift. It gives the other person a chance to make you look unstable, emotional, overreacting, old, and I wasn't going to give Damon that. Not this time. Instead, I did what women like me do when we are done being treated like furniture. I got quiet. I pulled out my old notebook, the one I keep in the kitchen drawer under the batteries and the takeout menus, the notebook where I write the numbers that matter, passwords, account details, names of people who answer the phone and actually help. The notebook Ernest used to joke was my little black box. I flipped to the page with one name circled in blue ink, Celeste Garner. Celeste had been my attorney for years. After Ernest passed, she helped me tighten my paperwork the way you tighten a lid on something you don't want spilled. She was sharp, calm, the kind of woman who didn't waste words because she didn't have to. Her voice always sounded like a door closing softly but firmly. She picked up on the second ring. "Miss June," she said. "She always calls me that even though my birth certificate says June Marie. You sound like something's happened." I told her everything. The charges, the shipping address, the text, Damon's little dream house, the way he'd been parading online like he already owned a future. Celeste didn't interrupt. When I finished, she let silence settle for a moment, like she was giving my dignity room to stand up off the floor. Then she said, "We can report the fraud. We can do it properly. But if you want to teach, not just punish, we can be strategic." Strategic is a word that tastes like steel when it leaves your mouth. I asked what she meant. Celeste asked for the address of the house Damon was bragging about. I gave it. She clicked her tongue softly. "I know the listing agent," she said. "The seller wants a clean close. A cash offer would lock it down fast." The kettle started to boil again, forgotten on the stove, and the sound of it felt like pressure building in my ribs. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel cruel. I felt clear. Like a fog lifting from a road you didn't realize you were driving blind on. "Do it," I said. "That's the part people don't understand about older women. They think we're soft because we bake pies. They think we're harmless because we speak gently. But gentleness and helplessness are not the same. I didn't survive childbirth, heartbreak, widowhood, and a lifetime of being underestimated just to become an easy target in my 70s. Thanksgiving was coming. Damon wanted to walk into that holiday with a new house and a shiny story to serve like a centerpiece. He wanted to be the hero of his own timeline, so I decided the holiday would still be memorable, just not the way he planned. The papers came quickly. Celeste moved like a woman who knows how to keep her hands clean while still getting bloodless justice. She set up a simple LLC, nothing flashy, no big names, just initials and a mailing address that didn't lead straight back to my porch. I signed the documents with a pen Ernest gave me on our 20th anniversary. The ink came out smooth, steady. My hand didn't shake. A few days later, Celeste called. "It's done," she said. "The house is yours." And while all of that was happening, Damon kept posting. He filmed himself outside the construction site, laughing, pointing at drywall like it was already furniture. His girlfriend, pretty little thing with eyelashes like fans, kept calling it their blessing. People in the comments were throwing fire emojis and calling him inspiring. I watched it all the way a woman watches a storm from behind a closed window. Not scared, not surprised, just waiting. The Thursday before Thanksgiving, Damon called me. His voice had that forced brightness in it, like a smile stretched too thin. "Grandma, you got a sec?" "Yes," I said. He cleared his throat. "So there's some weird freeze on my stuff. My bank's acting crazy. They saying something about fraud. And the mortgage people, they hit me with a delay." I let the silence sit. He filled it the way guilty people do. "It's probably a glitch, you know banks. But since it was your card that got mixed up, if you could just tell them everything's cool it would clear things up fast." He was asking me to be his shield. Again, I could almost see him, phone in his hand, expecting my love to bend like it always had. I kept my voice calm. "Come by tomorrow," I said. "After lunch. We'll talk." He agreed too quickly, hungry for the easy fix. That night I didn't sleep much. I lay in bed and listened to the house make its little sounds. Pipes shifting, wind rubbing against the eaves. I thought about Damon at 8 years old, calling me because he had a nightmare. I thought about him at 14, sulking in my living room after his first heartbreak, eating ice cream straight from the carton because I didn't have the heart to correct him. I thought about how love can turn into a habit, and habits can make you ignore damage. By morning I was dressed and ready. I baked cornbread, not because I was celebrating but because baking steadies my hands and clears my mind. The smell filled the house, warm and honest. The kind of smell that reminds you what real work looks like. Damon arrived wearing a shirt that said boss mode like a warning label. Sunglasses, chain, the whole performance. He walked up my porch steps like he was stepping onto a set. I pointed to the chair. "Sit." He sat, arms crossed, ready for a lecture. But I don't do lectures. Lectures give young men something to rebel against. I do questions. Questions make them face themselves. "Why didn't you ask?" I said. He blinked. "Ask what?" "Before you used my card. Before you opened another one in my name. Before you told me to lie for you." His face shifted. Just a flicker. Then he tried to smooth it out with a laugh. "Grandma, it wasn't like that. I was gonna tell you. I just needed it moving. It was temporary." "With what money were you going to pay it back?" I asked. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked away like the answer might be hiding in my azaleas. "You don't have income, Damon," I said, soft but solid. "You have attention, and attention doesn't pay debts." He exhaled hard through his nose. "You always got it though. You good." That sentence, those three little words hit me harder than any insult. You good. It's what people say when they've decided your boundaries don't count. I stood up, walked inside and came back with an envelope. Inside was a clean printed copy of the deed. I handed it to him. He frowned.
"What's this?" "The house," I said. "The one you've been posting in front of." He scanned the page once, twice, a third time like he expected the ink to rearrange itself into his name. His voice came out thin. This says, "It says what it says," I answered. "It's mine." He looked up at me, eyes wide like a child who just realized the world has rules that don't bend for confidence. "Why would you do that?" he asked, and I heard it, the heartbreak of his own ego collapsing. Not grief for me, not shame for what he did, panic for what he'd lose. I sat back down. "Because you needed to learn," I said. "You've been building your life like a stage set, pretty from the front, hollow behind it. You can't steal the foundation and call it success." He stood up and started pacing like truth was something you could outrun on a porch. "What am I supposed to tell Taylor? Everybody thinks. I already posted." "And you posted lies," I said simply. He stopped. His shoulders sagged just a little, like the weight of his own actions was finally finding him. "This is punishment," he muttered. "No," I said. "This is love that refuses to be used." He stared at me, and for a moment I saw something younger behind his eyes. Confusion, embarrassment, fear. The kind of fear that comes when you realize you're not as in control as you pretended to be. I leaned forward. "I reported the fraud," I said. "I didn't press charges, but the bank knows. There will be consequences. Your accounts are frozen while they investigate. Your credit will take a hit." He looked like I'd slapped him. "Grandma, don't," I said, not loud, just final. "You don't get to light matches in my name and then ask me to hold the water." His jaw clenched, then his mouth trembled, and finally, his voice broke open. "I messed up," he whispered. That was the first true thing he'd said in a long time. I nodded once. Yes. Silence sat down between us like a third person. The wind shifted. A leaf skittered across the porch boards. Then he asked the question that mattered. "So what now?" I looked at him the way I looked at struggling students back when I worked, like I could see their potential and their excuses in the same glance. "You start over," I said. "You get a job. You do work that makes your hands tired. You pay back what you took. You stop performing. You become someone who can be trusted when no one's watching." He swallowed. "And the house?" I let my eyes drift out to the street. Neighbors were putting up little turkey decorations, wreaths made of brown leaves, and orange ribbon. Thanksgiving was everywhere. A holiday about gratitude, about family, about what you keep and what you return to. "The house is a test," I said, "not a trophy." He stared, waiting for me to tell him what he wanted to hear. I didn't. Instead, I stood up and walked to my shed. I came back with a set of keys. His eyes widened again, hope flickering like a match. I put the keys in his palm. He looked down. "Not house keys, keys to my old lawnmower." "This," I said, tapping the metal lightly, "is where you start." His face fell. Then he laughed, a short, embarrassed breath. "You're serious?" "I've never been more serious," I said. "If you can't be trusted with grass, you can't be trusted with walls." He stared at the mower keys like they were heavier than gold. Then, in a voice so quiet it barely cleared his throat, he said, "I'm sorry." I didn't rush to comfort him. An apology is a seed. Seeds don't become trees because you clap for them. They become trees because someone waters them every day. "Show me," I said. The next morning, Thanksgiving morning, he showed up. No chain, no sunglasses, no phone in his hand like a shield. Just a hoodie, work boots, and a face that looked smaller, realer. He mowed my lawn while my cornbread baked, and my greens simmered. He cleaned gutters while the neighborhood filled with the scent of turkey and wood smoke. He didn't ask for praise. I didn't give it. At noon I made him a sandwich and left it on the porch step the way I used to when he was little and stubborn, hiding in the yard because he didn't want to come inside and talk. He ate it quietly and said, "Thank you." 2 words, but they sounded like effort. That evening when families all over town were clinking glasses and taking photos, Damon was on my porch wiping sweat off his forehead with the sleeve of his hoodie. No audience, no likes, just work. And for the first time in a long while I felt something in my chest loosen. Not forgiveness, not yet, but possibility. The weeks after Thanksgiving moved like honest seasons do. Slow, repetitive, unglamorous. He came back the next day, and the next. He fixed my fence, painted my back steps, cleaned out the shed and organized my tools like he was trying to put order back into a world he'd treated like a joke. One evening he handed me an envelope. Inside was cash, not a fortune, a start. "I know it's not everything," he said, eyes down, "but it's mine. I earned it." I didn't count it. I could tell by the way he held himself that it was real. We sat with tea in the late light. The sky was the color of copper pennies. The air smelled like cold dirt and distant fireplaces. He looked at his hands and said, "I thought if I looked successful long enough, it would become true." I watched the steam rise from my cup. "You can't grow fruit from a painted seed," I told him. "Roots don't care what you post." He nodded like the words were finally landing somewhere deep. Months later, after enough mornings of work and enough evenings of quiet accountability, I sat with Celeste again. We drew up a conditional agreement, a path, not a gift, not a reward, a structure. 1 full year, consistent job, full repayment, no new lies. When I slid the papers across the table to Damon, his hands shook. "You'd really do this?" he whispered. "I'm not doing it for the boy who took," I said. "I'm doing it for the man who returns." He didn't cry, but his eyes shone, and he folded the papers carefully like they were sacred. On the first anniversary of that Thanksgiving, the same week the leaves started falling again, Damon came to my porch holding a small bouquet. Not roses, nothing dramatic, just sunflowers and daisies like something you'd pick because you actually meant it. "I paid it all back," he said. "Every dollar." "I know," I replied. "I counted." He smiled. "A real one. And I enrolled in night classes," he added. "Business, the real kind." I want to build something that doesn't collapse when nobody's watching. That was when I went inside and came back with the deed. His name and mine sat there together. Clean ink on clean paper. This isn't a fairy tale, I told him as he stared. This is a responsibility. He nodded, swallowing hard. I'm giving it to the man who learned how to knock, I said. Not the boy who tried to steal the key. The world didn't stop spinning. No choir sang. No camera captured it. But when he hugged me, careful, like he knew how easily trust can bruise, I felt the quiet weight of something repaired. Not perfect. Repaired. Now when I sit in the nursing home lounge on cold afternoons because yes, life keeps moving and bodies get tired, I watch the younger folks scroll their phones and chase attention like it's oxygen. Sometimes I want to reach out and press my palm to their hands and say, you can't live on applause. It's air. It disappears. What lasts is what you build when nobody is clapping. A door you knock on. A debt you pay back. A promise you keep. And love. Real love doesn't always come wrapped in softness. Sometimes it comes wrapped in paper and law, in consequences. Sometimes it looks like a grandmother buying a house in silence and holding the lesson like a lantern until the boy is ready to see. Because I've learned something in these long years. You can love someone deeply and still refuse to be consumed by them. You can protect your heart and still open it, slowly, with wisdom. And if you're lucky, if they're willing, you get to watch a child you love become the kind of adult who doesn't need to steal warmth anymore. They learn how to make their own, quietly, one honest day at a time.